You will not believe the story I am about to tell you. Close your eyes and imagine Paris. Not the Paris of today, but Paris in the middle of the last century. A late evening, the air so thick it feels as if you could cut it with a knife. It smells of coffee, cigarettes, and perfume. One of those evenings when it seems that something important is about to happen at any moment, when a single glance can change a destiny. And through this city, gliding like a shadow, moves Roger Vadim. Do you know people like that? They always walk just a little faster than time itself. They see what others cannot. He did not simply look at women. Oh no, he deciphered them. Like a complex riddle, an ancient secret that requires patience and, I would say, almost surgical precision. And who knows, perhaps he was a bit of a sorcerer himself. And now, as if by magic, let us shift to her. Brigitte. Still practically a girl. And here, I ask you to forget every image that immediately flashes in your mind. Not the Bardot you just thought of. Not the symbol. Not the icon. Not the myth. A simple, slightly awkward teenage figure. Thin, with unruly hair. A face that does not forgive mistakes. Cheekbones that are too sharp. A mouth that is too bold. Teeth that in childhood were shyly hidden behind a metal brace. You know that feeling, do you not? When the world seems to tell you, "Wait, little girl, your time has not come yet. Be modest, do not stand out. You will have your chance later." But you know, there are things you simply cannot hide, no matter how hard you try. Her walk, her posture, her ability to grow silent in a way that suddenly makes the person in front of her want to speak sincerely, to open their soul. There was something quiet and dangerous in her at the same time. Something that made people turn their heads. A light that cannot be grasped, but cannot be ignored. Like a rare flower that pushes its way through asphalt. And this light is first caught, like a butterfly in a net, by a woman with a camera. The magazine Elle. The click of the shutter, and a moment becomes a sign of things to come. They present her as a future ballerina, emphasize discipline, purity, and almost monastic concentration. You have seen photographs like that, have you not? Young ballerinas, fragile as porcelain dolls. But Vadim, looking at the picture, senses something entirely different. Not ballet, not obedience. He senses a storm, a hurricane carefully hidden behind the mask of a good girl, as if someone had locked a wild cat inside a golden cage. He brings the photo to Marc Allegre, and Allegre reacts instantly, almost instinctively, like a hunting dog catching the scent of prey. "Find her! Quickly!" Before she disappears, before someone else realizes first that she is a treasure, a diamond that only needs to be cut, as if he is afraid she will be stolen from right under his nose. And then, the first meeting, and believe me, there were no long preludes or empty conversations. There are moments in life when everything is decided before a single word is spoken, when a glance speaks more than volumes of novels. Vadim looks at her in a way that makes 15-year-old Brigitte blush, lose herself, smile too quickly, as if trying to mask her embarrassment. She does not yet fully understand what is happening, but she feels with every cell of her body. He is not speaking to her as if she were a child. He is looking at her as at the future, as at a star destined to shine. He, in that moment, I am certain, is thinking about something entirely different. He already sees the result. Like a prophet, he sees who she will become, and that gaze makes her feel warm and frightened at the same time. Because such a gaze does not promise peace. It promises change, an explosion, a new life. And here the adult world, The world of strict rules and bourgeois prejudices suddenly slams its doors in front of them. Her parents panic. Bourgeois horror whispers behind their backs, suspicion. To them, he is a danger, a tempter, almost a criminal, a wolf circling a lamb. But Vadim does not push. He does not argue. He slips into their trust gently, like water, explains, persuades, changes his religion like a pair of gloves, attends classes he detests, takes a dull job. He does everything correctly, suspiciously correctly. But in truth, they have no choice. He simply charms them, like a snake charming a rabbit. And can you feel the drama of the moment? The parents believe they are controlling the situation, that everything is under their careful supervision, but she has already slipped from their hands. Her heart has already chosen its path, her fate already written, and nothing can change that. And then comes the wedding day. They finally marry. Can you picture the scene? An old church, an organ, a white dress, but, my friends, immediately after the formality of the ceremony, they crash into harsh reality. There is no wedding night. Just like that. He is left alone, not in their shared bedroom, but on a narrow couch in a strange, uncomfortable room. A symbol of the years ahead, as if someone had written the script of their relationship in advance. He is near. He is in her life, but always slightly off to the side. He is the creator who shapes something beautiful and then steps back to admire his creation from a distance. He creates and somehow remains behind, as if he is more interested in the process than the result. But this, my dear friends, is only the prelude, the opening act to the real drama. If you are ready, then ahead of us lie poverty, tears, loneliness, and that very turning point when a quiet girl is slowly, steadily transformed into the kind of woman the world will never again be able to ignore. Just imagine their first home together. Forget the romantic garrets with a view of the Eiffel Tower that you have seen in films. Before us is a gray, cheerless space, with walls that seem to have absorbed other people's disappointments. Cheap furniture, dim light, none of those charming little objects that create comfort. No warmth, no confidence in tomorrow. Brigitte walks there on tiptoe, and not because she fears waking the neighbors or breaking something. No. Inside her still lives that naive hope that if she stays quiet, if she does not disturb fate, things will turn out well. It is foolish, of course, but that is how youth so often is. Funny, is it not? When we believe that if we behave correctly, fate will take pity on us. There is no money. Not just not enough. Catastrophically none. A life of near destitution. You know that feeling, do you not? When you count every franc and deny yourself even the simplest pleasures. To survive somehow, she appears in advertisements. She smiles at the camera as if it were her life's purpose. She appears on screen briefly, almost accidentally, in a way that no one even remembers her name, like an extra lost in the crowd. And you know how painful it is to feel something vast inside you, an enormous potential, yet remain completely unnoticed, as if you have been locked in a dark room and forbidden to let your light shine. And he is not home at night. Cafes, cigarette smoke, loud laughter, conversations that last until dawn. Bohemia in a single word. Wine flows slowly, like time. Cards whisper on the tables. Friends philosophize, argue about cinema, and of course, about women. He lives in his world, bright and noisy, a world where everything still lies ahead. And she is not invited into that world. Not because he does not love her or hides her from his friends, No. It is simply that to him she is not the finished result, but merely an intriguing process, like clay in the hands of a sculptor. Brigitte cries, sometimes quietly, almost soundlessly, so that only the pillow knows her sorrow. Sometimes she clenches her teeth so the neighbors will not hear. She is angry, at him, at herself, at the cruelty of life. And the most frightening part is that she understands everything. She knows he is faithful to her. There is no betrayal. There is only a vast distance, a kind of invisible cold between two people, one of whom is looking far into the future, while the other is stuck in a gray present. And inside her grows fear, that thick, sticky nighttime fear that keeps you awake. What if it will always be this way? What if I remain a nobody, a beautiful promise that never comes true? And this feeling, believe me, corrodes the soul more painfully than any poverty. Like rust, it eats away at the last traces of faith in oneself. And now, prepare yourselves. Attention. It is at this moment, when she feels that everything is already decided, that there is no way out, that Vadim begins to act, not loudly, not theatrically, not for show, but slowly, almost imperceptibly. Like an experienced chess player making his next move, he begins to look at her differently, more attentively, more closely. He measures her, the way a tailor measures fabric for a perfect dress, the way a jeweler studies the right setting for a gem. He suggests changing her hair color. And you know, that simple advice feels as if it removes her previous life like an old piece of clothing. He patiently explains how to hold a gaze longer than is customary, how not to lower her eyes first, even when she wants to, how to allow a man to believe he is in control, while she remains the center of attention, as if he is teaching her an ancient art of seduction. And she learns to be a body, not shy, not accidental, not apologizing for its existence, but conscious, strong, magnetic. No more shapeless dresses and modest downward glances. Now it is a fitted bikini, open shoulders, bold accents. He teaches her the language of the body, the language of desire. He is carving a statue out of her. No more sweet daughter of a high-ranking official. Now she is the kind of woman men turn to look at, without even realizing at first why. Something elusive in her presence makes them lose their heads. Something wild, untamed, yet incredibly feminine. And she is not, in the conventional sense, a great beauty. But she has something close to magic. And what is most subtle is that she begins to change from within. She blossoms, like a bud in the sun. Shyness gives way to confidence, silence to a quiet challenge, a challenge to society, to its rules and limitations. She no longer waits for approval. She demands it, without a single word, with one glance, one step. Like a queen who has grown accustomed to others being indebted to her. At the same time, he searches for money. Like a gold prospector, he sifts through tons of useless sand in the hope of finding a precious nugget. He knocks on the doors of film studios, speaks, persuades, argues, takes risks. The script is already written in his mind. He knows what the story will be. Simple, almost primitive, but incredibly sensual. Everything revolves around her. She is the center of the universe. A risk? Enormous, truly colossal. But Vadim is a gambler. He has always placed his bets on women, as if they were his talisman. And when the money is finally found, when all the contracts are signed, the tension reaches its breaking point, like a taut string ready to snap at any moment. Because now there is no turning back. The bridges are burned. If the film fails, they will both sink, their careers destroyed. If it succeeds, the world will never be the same. And this weight of responsibility presses upon both of them with incredible force. And you already sense it, do you not? You already feel the resolution approaching. We have reached that very point of bifurcation, where one step separates poverty from worldwide immortality, obscurity from eternal fame. Ahead lies the film that changed everything, and the love that began to crack at the very moment of triumph, like an old tree under the pressure of a hurricane. As if happiness itself cannot survive the test of fame. And then comes the moment when waiting becomes unbearable. When each day stretches out like an entire year. Filming is finished. The reels have been viewed. Everyone pretends that everything is under control, that nothing extraordinary is happening. But you know this insincere world of cinema. People smile precisely when everything inside them trembles, when the abyss opens under their feet, when the future seems foggy and uncertain. The film is released, and within the first days it becomes clear. This is not just another film. This is a challenge to society, a challenge to morality, a challenge to fate itself. So then God created woman strikes the prim, conservative public like a sudden thought that cannot be forgotten, like a tune that loops endlessly in the mind. The plot? There is almost none. A fatal love triangle, passion, jealousy, betrayal. It had all been seen before. But here there is her. Brigitte. Not simply an actress, not simply a pretty young woman. No, she is a phenomenon, a force of nature. The camera loves her the way only a camera in love can. She moves, she breathes, she remains silent. And her silence becomes deafening, as if she speaks without words, with a single glance, with the slightest lift of an eyebrow. Critics flounder, searching for the right terms. They look for comparisons. They liken her to Venus rising from the sea foam, to the first woman shaped by the hand of God himself. And yet no one can understand how innocence and boldness, childlike seriousness and magnetic lightness, naivety and predatory, unrestrained freedom coexist in one delicate figure. It is not an image, not a role. It is life itself, contradiction in its purest form. All of France speaks of only one thing. Posters with her face look down from every corner. Discussions do not stop for a single minute. The sighs of the enchanted and the outrage of the moralists clash like two storms, as if someone had struck a wasp nest. Everyone had been waiting for exactly such a strike against quiet, predictable reality. Vadim begins to be called the father of a new cinema. Evenings grow louder, doors open by themselves as if by magic. The very thing he lived for, the thing he believed in, has finally happened. Success, fame, recognition. But precisely at this moment, as so often happens in life, the story makes a cruel, treacherous turn, as if someone had decided to mock them. You know the saying that film sets give birth not only to movies, but to romances as well. Well, on that set, in the shadows of the studio lights, between Brigitte and Jean-Louis Trintignant, arises not a game, not a fleeting flirtation. No, a real feeling emerges. Love. Dangerous, overwhelming love. The kind that always comes unexpectedly, like thunder on a clear day, and unfortunately always breaks someone's life like a fragile vase. He is calm, intelligent, composed, a sort of French aristocrat, the complete opposite of the assertive, energetic Vadim. And that difference, strangely enough, acts like a magnet. It draws, it fascinates, it strips away will. You understand the tragedy of the situation, do you not? The irony of fate? A husband, like Pygmalion, shaped her into a star, put his soul into her, presented her to the world. And at the very moment when the world acknowledged his work with admiration, the heart of his wife, like a migrating bird, flew away. Betrayal? Perhaps. But can one blame a bird for flying where its heart calls? Any other man in such a situation would have created hell. Scandal, shouting, reproaches, humiliation. He would have tried to keep her by force, prove his love, shame her. But Vadim behaves differently. He simply lets go. Quietly, without drama, without demands, without hysteria, as if it were his most important role in life, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Because he knows himself too well. He understands that his part in her life has been played. He was the beginning, the catalyst, the spark, the form, but not the destination. He understands that everyone has their own path. For this gesture, for this generosity, Brigitte will remember him forever. Not as a husband, not as a lover, as something greater. As a wise mentor, as an old Russian soul, as a person who refused to break her wings when she had finally learned to fly. She will call him her old Russian, turn to him for advice in difficult moments, trust him with things she never told even her closest lovers. A paradox, is it not? And he, meanwhile, moves on, calmly, almost coldly, as if none of this was a loss or a tragedy, but simply a completed project. He feels like a craftsman who has finished polishing a diamond and now can quietly set aside his tools. He has done his work, and now he may rest. But you feel the trick, do you not? You understand that nothing ends so simply. Because after such thunderous victories, there always comes a time of reckoning. For each person, a very particular one. Now imagine what life looks like after a fairy tale. Not during the triumph, not at the peak of glory, but afterward. When the stage lights are still shining brightly, yet you already feel that this light does not belong to you anymore, that it is shining past you. Brigitte remains alone on an enormous stage. Around her are men, admiring glances, loud romances, flashes of passion, empty promises of eternal love. Everything is so fast, so bright, so fleeting. She is desperately trying to catch that very feeling she once had at the very beginning. That look in which she was seen completely, truly. But every new romance is somehow shorter than the previous one. Each next man is more handsome, more famous, louder, and yet farther and farther from her soul. Motherhood does not anchor her to reality. It passes somewhere beside her, without touching her deeply. The child does not remain with her, and this too, you know, is an escape. From responsibility, from the growing pain, from the terrible silence that has settled inside her. Meanwhile, she becomes a symbol, a style icon, a sex symbol of an entire era, and a symbol cannot be weak. A symbol cannot doubt. A symbol does not cry at night. A symbol always smiles in photographs and says the right, polished words. And inside that gilded surface, inside that radiant image, grows the very loneliness that, I fear, nothing can ever truly fill. A bottomless abyss. And one day, as if at the snap of a finger, she simply leaves the game. As if she is exhausted by the endless performance, by the endless roles, by the insistent stares. Cinema, finished. Enough. Too much intrusive attention, too many false smiles, too little genuine warmth. She turns toward those who will never betray her, who will never compare her to anyone else, who will never demand the impossible, toward animals, toward our smaller brothers. They accept you exactly as you are, without conditions. And in that unconditional love, in that simple sincerity, she finally finds the peace she had longed for, as if she had returned home after a long, exhausting journey. And now, let us shine the spotlight once again upon Vadim. We cannot forget about him, can we? He continues living in the only way he knows how. Lightly, gracefully, calmly, with an ironic glance at the world and at himself. He no longer tries to become a great director, to conquer Cannes, or to win an Academy Award. He knows precisely where his true strength lies, in his ability to ignite stars, in his ability to see potential where others see nothing at all. Again and again he finds quiet, unnoticed girls whom everyone else overlooks and brings them into the light, like a magician pulling a rabbit from a hat. Annette, Catherine, Jane, Isabel. Each of them walks the same path, discovered, created, released, as if he works on an assembly line, producing new stars one after another. He never clings to his protégés. And you know, this both frightens and fascinates, as if he is not attached to anything in this world, as if he does not care what happens next. At the end of his life, when behind him stands an entire constellation of stars he discovered, he calls himself, with a bitter smile, a devil who lights the stars. And there is not a drop of bravado or flirtation in those words. It is cold, almost ruthless honesty. He knows exactly the price of his interventions in other people's lives. He understands perfectly that he makes people great, and at the same time leaves them forever alone with that greatness, as if he pushes them over the edge of a cliff where they must learn to fly by themselves. And now, when our story is almost finished, look back in your mind at everything we have seen. Scroll through it all like an old film reel, frame by frame. Was it love? Without a doubt. Was it manipulation? I'm afraid that yes, it was, but most importantly, it was a meeting of two destinies, two very different yet equally powerful personalities. A meeting in which one person became the beginning of a path, and the other a legend. And each of them paid for it in their own way. Each paid their own price. So when you next see the radiant, magnificent Brigitte Bardot on screen, remember, behind that light stands the man who once looked at her a little more attentively than the rest, and then stepped aside in time so as not to block her sun. The name of that man is Roger Vadim. And now, my friends, answer honestly, with your hand on your heart. Would you have been able to let go in the same way? Would you have been able to renounce your own love for the sake of another person's happiness? That is a question that remains open for each of us.